Now this shirt, I know I haven't worn it in about 2 years.
I definitely haven't seen that ever in my life.
In
One
fact,
time. Welcome to the Artandhustle Gala Conversations. Welcome back here, Captain Schiavo. I'm excited for you to tell me about this book that you're excited about to tell us.
well, I've got so many books on my shelves, as you know, okay, and a lot of them excite me. Last time I mentioned to you the book of the quarter year, we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
Sprezzatura and the Renaissance Man kind of thing, and that was great. And that's a book that it's interesting because of the fact that you're seeing what the concerns were among the nobility back in 1528. But for some reason, I started to say, I have to reread some of my more interesting books or favorite books. And years ago, I would have reread novels. Like I've read
Mm-hmm.
uh, Henry Fielding's Tom Jones, which is a very thick book. I've read it, God, at least a half a dozen times, if not more, over
Wow.
my life. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of my all-time favorite books. Novels. So winds up anyway that, but in the last third of my career, I was
Mm-hmm.
teaching 32 years, but in my last third of my high school teaching, I started saying, you know what, I started reading a lot of stuff, and I was in a like a I forget what book club it was in, but I started reading a lot more nonfiction stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as there is great truth and great um, yeah, great truth and great advice sometimes in fiction stuff and novels. I said, you know what, I really want to read some other things that are nonfiction
Mm-hmm.
because of stuff that I was interested in my life. So I was reading a lot of stuff in cultural anthropology. I was reading a lot of stuff again, in philosophy and mythology and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also reading more and more about uh, American history and a few other things. And one of the books that came out in 1995, the copyright was 1995, is a book called uh, Lies My Teacher Told Me. The subtitle of which is Everything Your American History Textbook Got Wrong.
I
Okay?
love it. I love it.
Yeah, and it's the author was James W. Loewen, Loewen.
Yeah, the
And
book. Show us.
oh, sure, you
Yeah,
got it
show
here.
us the
You
book.
can see it. I don't know if you can see it over
I
there.
love it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
I love the little cover cartoon and all that stuff.
Yeah. It says whitewash on it. You know, and
And I think you're white too, Schiavo, which I love.
uh, and this is part of and the reason why I started reading, starting to reread it. I finished it, but I finished my reread. Is because of what's happening in our culture today, where you have all these politicians, mostly the right wingers, okay, trying to again whitewash things because they've been getting so upset about how uh, people of color, uh, liberals, professors, whatever, uh, are having the colossal, if not, integrity, really,
Hmm.
colossal gall and arrogance to tell the truth about American history. Okay. And it's saying, well, no, America is not the greatest country in the world in terms of its morality. No, it's not exceptional. Look, it's exceptional in certain things, but
Hmm.
lots of countries are exceptional in certain things. I mean, how do you beat, for example, Italian art, history, and food? I mean, come on, music. Give me a break. You want the truth? In America, come on, who makes a better baguette than the French? I mean, give me a break.
That is
Uh,
true. That is
yeah.
true.
Also, a lot of those countries gave up on on slavery and a few others well before. I mean, England outlawed slavery. God, it was back in what was the year? I forget. It was, but way before we did. Okay.
Hmm.
So, and then again, of course, we've been the biggest bullies on the block for a long time because we have
Yeah, we said that the other day.
yeah, we have money, we have the power. Um, I don't think, like lots of people felt that, oh, what they talked about, the good war was World War II because we came off as the good guys. But, people forget, uh, Americans resisted getting involved in that for a long time.
Hmm.
And, but we saved a lot of people's bacon. And then, unfortunately, people got arrogant about it when they said, well, we saved the British, we saved the this. But you know what? Hey, just you forget that the French saved our bacon back in the Revolutionary War. If it weren't for Lafayette, we would have probably lost. Okay, so I mean, what people have come to believe in this country as being truth is usually utter hogwash. You
Yep.
know, it's utter
Mm-hmm.
twat.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I liked about this book is the title is "Lies My Teacher Told Me," and but to be fair to teachers, okay,
Because you are one.
well, yes, but also to be fair specifically to history teachers,
Mm-hmm.
they believe all this happy horse poop too, because they were taught certain things, and given the textbooks that they were given to read, even in
Mm-hmm.
college, they weren't getting the negative stuff. They were getting more positive stuff. And
Yeah.
certainly, when they're teaching high school kids, God forbid that they should teach them the truth of American history. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, for example, pretty much half of all the signers of the Declaration of Independence owned slaves. And here
Mm-hmm.
they are, oh, equal opportunity and
Mm-hmm.
man's born fair. I mean, so the startling hypocrisy of it all, they gloss over that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Okay. Yeah. So what you really have is a situation where they say that the winners of any war, for example, they write the history, they teach the history, and
Mm-hmm.
that's true here, just like any place else. You know.
Yep. Exactly.
So I think this, and again, I'm speaking as a library person, library trustee. You know, the history books, the truth of history, is on our library stacks. Okay,
Yeah.
you can find it if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad for me, and I'm not the only citizen who feels this way. It's sad for me to see what the present GOP, the present so-called Republican Party, has become. There were people growing up, Republicans, for whom I had some level of respect. I didn't always agree with them. I didn't always vote for them, but at least they were a legitimate pro-democracy party, and they could argue, economic policy and all kinds of other stuff. And thanks to the likes of a Trump, and by the way, he's the worst example, but certainly there were a lot of others who were right wingers who well before him who were trying to create chaos and you know, miseducation in this country, like Newt Gingrich, who should live in infamy and whatever, whatever. He's just a scummy human being.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he was the one. I guess it was his wife's on her deathbed or sick as a dog in a hospital, and he's cheating on her, and he's taking.
Oh
And,
my God.
and then, of course, the disgusting hypocrisy of these people is that they're always preaching family values. They preach family values. They didn't have any themselves, but they
Mm-hmm.
would sell to the plebes out in the West, Midwest, and the South. Oh, family values. Oh, church-going people. Oh, give me a break.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have so many papers and so many notes, Linda. You have no idea. Okay, um, but I mean, one of my favorites is going to church doesn't make you a Christian any more than going to a garage makes you a mechanic. You know what I mean?
I love it. See, I love
Yeah.
these. I love
Yeah.
little quotes and I love like little stories.
Yeah, I mean, people go to. I remember talking to a guy years ago about why he went to church, and he said, "Well, I do it for my family. My wife makes me go." And
Mm-hmm.
then he said something which I thought, for a grown, educated man, was sad. He goes, "Well, even though I don't really kind of believe in all this stuff, if I'm wrong, I guess it's like insurance." And I'm thinking, well,
Mm.
put up or shut up. Grow a
Yeah, then you
pair,
really
have a
don't, you're
spine.
not really standing by what you just said because
Yeah,
you're
make a
doubting it.
yeah, make a decision. Okay,
Yeah.
make a decision, stick with it. And I think this is what life is. Life is choices. You make
Yes,
choices.
life is really choices, and I feel like people don't really want to stand by their choice, that they don't believe
Yeah,
it, and they're kind
yeah,
of like wishy-washy. Like I'm like, pick a lane. Which lane do you want to be in?
for sure. So I mean, and I think part of the thing too is when you read a book like Lies My Teacher Told Me, and you start to realize how much BS there was.
I
It
know,
starts.
like I wanna get this for my kids, and it'll be hysterical if they read it and then go into class and start like
Oh
arguing
yeah,
with the
I'm
teachers.
believe me, and expect them to get admonitions from their history teachers. But,
Yeah, yeah, I
but
think it'll be
I
hysterical.
yeah, I mean, I could turn on back here. Let me put my glasses on. I could turn to almost any page of the book
Yes,
and find.
give me some of the funny things in there that you
Well, okay. So here we go. Last paragraph. I forget what the Oh yeah, this is a story. It's a chapter on Gone with the Wind, and I've got a story to tell you about my own experience as a
See,
high
I
school.
love it. Everything correlates, everything
Exactly.
connects.
So it says, uh, educators justify teaching history because it gives us perspective on the present. If there's one issue in the present to which authors should relate the history they tell, the issue is racism. But as long as history textbooks make white racism invisible in the 19th century, neither they nor the students who use them will be able to analyze racism intelligently in the present. Okay? So the fact is that uh, one of the novels that one of my favorite English teachers gave as an assignment was Gone with the Wind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Gone with the Wind has this really pro-white, happy version of racism in the South at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And after we had to read this, it was a very thick book. After we had to read it, we then, I think, watched the movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you watched it now, given what you know and I know, and a lot more people know about the racism in this country,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be appalled,
Yeah.
or you'd be appalled, because uh, it kind of indicates, well, the slaves were living a pretty good life, and they were loved and appreciated by the white families that they were taking
Yeah.
care
Yeah. Yeah.
of. All this other happy hogwash, and one of the here's a little factoid for you, okay? Because most uh, American history teachers teach that, okay, guess what? The first settlers, whatever, in the United States were really these white people from Europe and whatever, England, and the Mayflower and crap like that. The Mayflower,
Yeah.
the Mayflower was 16 something or other. Well, they totally neglect to tell anybody, okay? Because remember, those are white people first of all, okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they're white, Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, the first settlers in the country, remember, the indigenous peoples they settled this country thousands of years before anybody else got here.
Yeah.
But they don't consider it being settled because they're not white. That's number one. Number
Yeah.
two, who came over first?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Spanish with black African slaves. Okay,
Wow.
they landed first in a place in South Carolina in
Mm-hmm.
1528.
Mm-hmm.
No American history teacher teaches that.
Yeah. No one
No,
says that at all.
no, no. So any question? Oh my God, ooh, I mean, if you're lucky if they say, well, gee, they think the Vikings got here, hundreds of years before anybody else. The fact of the matter is that historians, uh, what do you call it, social scientists, things like that, they have a belief, like in history. I have always said that uh, ancient peoples, okay, traveled over the globe way more than modern uh, scientists and archaeologists have believed for a long time. More and more are saying, "Oh God, yeah, we realize that certain peoples they sailed all over the globe and they got here and they went there and
Mm-hmm.
there's been a connection and
Mm-hmm.
uh, look at the architecture around the world. You have all these different pyramids in all these different countries. Well, obviously they got the information from someplace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there are ancient alien, philosophers, scientists, whatever. They go, oh well, the ancient aliens did that. That's how. Well, okay, be that as it may. I'm not saying that I believe that. What I'm saying is that there is a transmission of education and architecture and the science of the time at whatever level or throughout the world because people did in fact travel. They did go to other places.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we have no record of it yet
Yeah.
doesn't mean they didn't do it.
Doesn't mean that it didn't
Right.
exist. Yeah.
So the fact of the matter is that uh, this whole thing about American history, no matter where you look, I mean, here's another one. If you read a lot of American history textbooks, or you talk to a lot of white people, and you talk about Reconstruction after the Civil War, well, guess
Mm-hmm.
what? They make it sound, oh, the black people started to take over. Things went south. It was terrible. They didn't know what they were doing. Well, guess what? Absolutely, the reverse was true. Okay,
Hmm.
that actually they were doing fine, and then white politicians said, "Oh, we can't let them have this power. We can't let them have this influence." Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Black Wall Street that they created.
Yeah, well, that's I was just going to go there. You beat me
Mhm.
to it. The Black Wall Street, which
I know
occurred
where
that
you're going.
okay, yeah, that was a perfect example of why they couldn't stand the
Exactly.
fact that
Exactly.
black people were doing so well financially,
Hmm.
that they were thriving, okay, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that was 1921.
Hmm.
And here's one of the things that's absolutely not only fascinating but horrifying about that massacre, okay,
Yep.
which is what it was.
Hmm.
They used planes to bomb the inhabitants of that Black Wall Street.
Yeah, they
It
just
was
burned
the
it down, right?
Yeah, but it was the first time ever
Hmm.
that Americans bombed their own citizens, and that was
Hmm.
strictly because of racism.
Yep.
Strictly,
Yeah.
okay? I mean, to say these people are not important, they may live here, they may be citizens, screw them, they're black, they don't count. Okay?
Hmm.
So, but again, it isn't just black people that we have, you know, used terror on and
Hmm.
brutalized. We certainly did it to the Indians. It was basically genocidal. You
Yep.
can ask for a scummier president. Well, we have a scummier president than Andrew Jackson, our ex-president. Trump is as scummy as he gets. Uh, but Andrew Jackson was happy to commit genocide if he could wangle it on American Indians. Okay. And he was no lover of black people either. So I mean, we have had some really terrible presidents. Woodrow Wilson, they say, oh, Woodrow, he was a great president during World War One. Well, guess what? He made sure that black people could have no real um, positions of authority in America. He wouldn't let black people in certain kinds of institutions and wouldn't let them get certain kinds of jobs. He was as big a racist as any other president, really.
Yeah.
So what you have here is, and they don't teach that. See,
No, they don't. They only want to teach you what they want to brainwash you, technically.
yeah, but it isn't now. To be fair, it isn't even all about race too. I mean, so for example, do we talk about like right now you have this war in Ukraine and we talk about the Russian brutality and the atrocity that they've been committed. Okay, now they're white people. Okay, frankly, human beings, the human species is one of the worst, most disgusting species on the planet. Okay, we are we have our human nature is so in some ways so terrible. Okay, well, look what we've done to animals. Look what we've done to other cultures. Look
Hmm.
at how. And by the way, they always talk about each individual has a good side and a bad side. Okay,
Hmm.
it's like when I was a kid watching cartoons. There was like on
There's the
TV.
devil on one side and there's
Yeah,
the
right.
angel on the other side.
Exactly, and they're
Hmm.
talking to each other,
And there's
and so
always
you
a
learn.
cartoon that does that, right?
Exactly. So you learn as a kid, okay, about the duality of the human psyche and the
Hmm.
human
The
species.
yin and yang.
Absolutely. And what happens is it doesn't take much for that negative evil side
Yeah.
to emerge. It doesn't
Yeah.
take much.
It
Okay.
doesn't. No.
So, and look, I have it. I'm not perfect. I mean, I remember there were times I had to actively say, wait a second, I have I'm going too far here, or my
Hmm.
thought process is going in a direction that's totally negative,
Yeah.
totally brutal.
Hmm.
Uh, that's what, you have to control that. It's
Hmm.
very hard to control that.
Hmm.
Now, uh, it takes thought, it takes training, it takes education.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is where people like me come in.
Yeah.
We used to always, when we were in teaching, we always knew that kids, students learned bigotry and prejudice and brutality at their parents' or their mother's knee. In other words, what your family was like, what
Hmm.
your parents were like, in many ways is going to shape those children.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
be in many cases too much like them until they get educated by a decent couple of teachers or have a decent couple of friends who say no, uh, vilifying black people, Asian people, Latino people is wrong. Stealing stuff, other people's stuff is wrong. No, you can't just buy a gun and shoot people you don't like. Oh, that's all.
Hmm.
That's all. Um, and so most kids, and the studies that they have done studies over the years forever, that when you get kids of color, okay, and kindergarten, elementary school grades, whatever, they don't have a problem with race. They don't have a
No,
problem.
they don't see it at all.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to
When they're
disagree there.
like really little, like, super
Yeah, but I
small,
mean,
just playing.
yeah, I mean, they may say, "Well, gee, you're darker than I am," but the fact
Yeah.
is, they don't look at it as a negative. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, people say, "Well, I don't see color." Well, as a white person working in a multicultural environment, yeah, I saw color. Okay, I saw color, but to me, it wasn't a bad thing. You know, it's like I feel about my Aloha shirts. I
Yeah.
have all these different colors on my shirts.
The more color, the better.
Yeah, the more color, I used to say to my black students, well, I say it to all of the students, when I used to wear these shirts. It's, oh, well, how come you wear these loud shirts? I said, hey, life's too short to live it without color.
Hmm.
And if I said it in an African American lit class, they'd laugh, they'd giggle, because they got the message.
Hmm.
Plus the fact, many of them, I think I told you before, and they came from island countries, or the parents came from island countries, so they were used to having colorful clothing. People coming from Africa, Africans have a lot of colorful clothing.
Yeah,
Okay,
like Asian has a lot of color, Spanish has a lot of color, Indian
absolutely,
have a
yeah.
lot of color.
So on the apparel level, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, color is a good thing. Okay, and uh, and part of the other thing is what people of color have brought to this culture. Okay,
Hmm.
can you imagine if we hadn't had black people in this country, what kind of music we wouldn't have had?
What kind of music you wouldn't have stolen?
Well, that's another thing too. Now it's funny because I used to give an African American that I used to tell you every Friday I would do music.
Hmm.
I would do African tribal music. But I used to do my biggest fun for me was because I'm a big fan is blues music.
Yeah, I
People
love it. Yeah.
my favorite is Lightning Hopkins, but there's also Mississippi John Hurd and Robin Johnson. There's a whole bunch. There's a bunch.
Hmm.
And so, of course, and I would have that conversation. Guess what? When you have Elvis Presley and a lot of these rockers, they stole a lot
Yeah.
of that music from
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Yep.
Now, certain British groups, I'm trying to remember the group. Was it Rolling Stones? A couple of them really said, "Yeah, we got our musical, motivations and stuff, and a lot of our licks, we got them from hearing and studying these black blues musicians." Okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
a lot of people feel that the most that in America, the most truly American classic music is jazz.
Hmm.
Gee, who created that? Black folk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is all this, and and when you suppress this kind of knowledge, I mean, you this book doesn't only go back to early American history; it goes up to modern times, like in Vietnam, places like that.
Hmm.
Uh, the atrocities that Americans committed in Vietnam it was horrible, and yet they claimed, oh, it's they're doing horrible things to us. Well, you know what? Because of human nature, okay, both sides did horrible things.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
in World War II, same thing. Okay,
Hmm.
so we always come off, and this is another big talk about big lies. I mean, the big lie right now is that the election was stolen from Trump. No, he lost legitimately because people said we got to get this stupid bastard. He's crazy. He's clinically mentally ill. We got to get him out of office. He's dangerous. He's destroying this country.
Hmm.
The people who say, "Oh, he was a great president. He did great things." Okay, yeah? Name me three things that we can say, "Oh, what a great president he was." No, okay, he was a lying, cheating, thieving, total piece of shit in almost any direction. I mean, even his own people were saying, "We got to control him. He's dangerous." Okay,
Hmm.
he's
Hmm.
nuts and he's dangerous. Okay, but people will believe that the people who would believe in Trump, here's what they get from him. Okay, they get a feeling. This is why Trump loves to espouse conspiracy theories. People who are not well educated, and he said, "I love the poorly educated." Okay, yeah, because they'll follow him anyways, right?
Yeah.
Because they believe that by this supposedly now the special knowledge they have, even though it's totally wrong, they feel, oh God, I'm smarter than the liberals. I'm smarter than the coastal elites. Okay, they're so ignorant and they're so gullible that they go off. I believe this absolutely. What we would say is crazy. Okay, we have special knowledge, and obviously we're really smart, and these other people just don't know what they're talking about. And that's one of the great unfortunate aspects of being ignorant of stuff, is that what little you know, you
Hmm.
believe to be really important and special, and it makes you special.
Yeah.
Okay? But it's really not. It makes you even more pathetic and disgraceful and
Hmm.
disgusting
Hmm.
than, you know, you are. You're just too you're just too undereducated to know it,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. Or you're just not even like open-minded to realize that there's other truths out there
Yeah,
besides the one that you're being fed.
but this is the point of why you got certain politicians of certain states saying, "Well, we don't want them teaching critical race theory. We don't want them teaching. We don't want them reading about these LGBT, novels and things, and about sex changes and or sex at all, about any easier to control. The
Yeah,
less they
yeah,
know, the less they're going to give you a hard time. And if you
yep.
can make them believe horse poop, okay,
Hmm.
that helps us control them. Hey, all the better.
Yeah,
Okay."
yeah.
So this is why I used to be a little bit of a problem when I was in high school.
Just a little problem.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Just a little.
I tried to be polite and tactful with my teachers, uh, and if I disagreed with them about something, I would say it,
Yeah,
and of course they would try to find a way to shut me down or
yeah.
try to massage what I said to make it more positive. Okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
and but the problem was that I was again an avid reader, and I was widely read. Okay,
Yeah, yeah. And that's
so
that's one of the key words, is to be widely read. So you
yeah,
know
yeah.
all the knowledge.
Right, right. I think that this is part of the problem too, that people say, "Look, I no, I like to read stories about horses, and I like to read science fiction, okay?
Hmm. Hmm.
But I also magazines and articles and what have you." And this is something that in schools, they've got kids so busy reading their textbooks,
And so
okay?
much homework too.
Well, now this is something, we haven't had a real discussion of. I was always an anti busy work homework.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you what I gave homework. Here was my homework. I'd say, here's a book. This is going to be a 2 week read. This book's going to be a 3 week read. Okay.
Hmm.
You have reading every night. Now, so let's say the book was 300 pages.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have school 5 days a week, 2 weeks for this book. That's what? 10 days. Okay. 10 into 300, read 30 pages a night. It was simple. I mean, it was simple math. I could do the simple math.
Hmm.
Okay. 10 into 300, 10 into 400. That's how many pages you read. Now, if you want to read on the weekends, well, now you can divide 300, 7 into 300. Okay. And then
Hmm.
you have to read fewer pages per night, but you'll get the work done.
Hmm.
So if I did a 2 week unit, let's say like Brave New World would be a 2 week unit for me.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's okay. It's going to be 10 days of class, right? You're going to read that book within that 10 days. And then on the 10th day, a Friday, I'm going to give you an exam on Brave New World. Okay? Now, what was the other homework I gave besides reading?
Essay.
Thank you. I gave an essay a week to my honor students. I gave an essay every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks usually to my region students. But they're all
Hmm.
going to get something they had to write. They had to learn to express themselves in writing. Okay? And I always gave them topics that were not concrete. They were abstract. Purpose of
Hmm.
existence, free will versus
Yeah.
determinism. Stuff that they could not form no conclusion
Hmm.
but their own. They had to think about it and say, well,
They had to use their brain? Really?
yeah, yeah. They had to say, well, here's what I believe
Hmm.
about free will
And why?
and why. Now, a lot of times they listen to their preacher, their pastor, or whatever, and say, well, like in the old days in the parochial school, say, the purpose of life is to know, love, and serve God. Okay, that
Hmm.
was in the Baltimore Catechism, I think.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, even then, as a third grader, I went, "Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
what's God? Who's God? And why would I
Yeah.
do this? Why
Yeah,
would
I mean,
I mean,
that's how I believe. I mean, like, we didn't have religion in our house, like forced on us, but obviously going to school and friends, they always talked about God. And I'm like, what? Like, that doesn't make any
yeah,
sense.
but let me ask you a question. Given your Asian background, I mean, did you follow or did your parents follow any of the Asian belief systems like Buddhism
Yeah,
or
like there was more Buddhism, and there was always like like an Asian god that they would have like a little statue
uh
of, and they would always pray to it and this and that. But to me, like, I mean, one of my main aspects was always like, if there was a god, why would they let these horrible, horrific things happen?
okay, and
So
then the
that
other,
made me question, why would
okay,
there be God if they let these things happen? So that
and
was
did,
one of my questions.
and did you come up with an answer?
I didn't believe there was a God. I was more of an atheist after
Now you
that.
see, okay, yeah, and of course now here's something that people don't want to accept either. You want to talk about ignorance?
Mhm.
If you posit that God does not exist, then everything makes sense, no matter how horrible it is, because you realize, wait a second, there is no purpose on the
Mhm.
planet. There is no like ultimate end other than the destruction of the planet in some way, shape, or form. Whether the sun explodes or
Mhm.
we kill it ourselves with all kinds of toxic toxins and things like that.
Mhm.
Like as an ocean guy, as a surfer, fisherman, whatever, uh, boater. Once you kill the ocean and everything in it, we're
Mhm.
done. We're
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
This planet's over. Human beings will go extinct right away. Okay.
Yeah.
And when I say that to people, that all of a sudden the world makes sense once you realize that there is no God. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, and also you can't blame that non-existent God for anything. It's just it is the way it is. In fact, one of my favorite authors and philosophers and mythologists is a guy named he's now got dead, Joseph Campbell. And Joseph,
Mhm.
in fact, we're gonna I'll talk about him next podcast
Okay.
and some of the books he wrote because they were formative again for me,
Yeah.
among other reasons. But he would say, well, what's the purpose of a flower? What's the purpose? Well, it could feed bees. They
Mhm.
get stuff from it, but there really is no purpose for that flower. I mean, we might think it makes the world more beautiful, but why is it there? It doesn't have to be there. Okay.
Mhm.
And what's the purpose for human beings? Where we're born, but to die. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so we don't have any real purpose unless we created ourselves, and that's what existentialism is all about. You have to create a purpose for yourself.
Mhm.
If you're true to that purpose, then the existentialist will say, well, you're an authentic, real human being. You're being true to that purpose.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, when you get to a certain point, as I have, for example, that a lot of the purposes that I created for myself, whether I like it or not, I've achieved a lot of those purposes.
Yeah.
What's next for me?
Mhm.
Well, truthfully, croaking, really. You know what I mean? I mean,
No, it's the podcast and then croaking.
okay, podcast and a croaking. Is that I did
I've
with,
inserted some purpose
yeah,
into the
I,
mix.
I, not only me, but friends of mine, we did with our lives what we wanted to do with our lives, and we've been successful at the goals that we set for ourselves,
Mhm.
and we're proud of that.
Yeah.
I'm proud of that. We're proud of that. Uh, but there comes a point, and this is why existentialists would say to you, some of them say, well, you know what? Once I've lived to my purposes. I'm just breathing air and eating food and things like that. There's no other reason for me to live because I have no purpose anymore. So it would be not uncommon for people, existentialists, to say, well, suicide is an option.
Mhm.
I'm not one of those because my feeling is what's kept me going for so long has been intellectual curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's what that means to me. I
Mhm.
want to know how my life is going to end. Now,
Yeah, I mean, exactly,
yeah,
exactly. I
but
mean,
I always got,
that's one of the main reasons why I would not have done violence towards someone or violence towards myself and end my life, because I felt like I had more life to live and I had more purpose to live. I want to know what's going to happen to me.
well, yeah. Now here's the thing too. I had 3.5 years ago. I had a stroke. Okay, didn't kill me. It just made me miserable for about 4 or 5 months. Okay,
Mhm.
I was nauseous. I was dizzy.
Yeah, yeah.
So okay, fine. But I was very lucky. So now here's the other thing. So I thought at that point, I'm on the floor lying. I'm lying on the floor, and I said to my wife, I'm dying, and I knew it. I said at that point, this is it. This is how my life ends. Okay.
Hmm.
Fortunately, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm saying, okay, I had a near miss here. Okay, I had a near miss. Now, did it make me live my life any differently?
Hmm.
And the answer is actually no, no.
I mean,
Because
normally people would change their life.
no, because but that's my point. My point is that for me personally,
Yeah.
I had done all the stuff I ever wanted to do. I wanted a horse.
You sucked the bone marrow out of life.
Well, but this, yeah, but I mean, look, maybe I could have done more. I could, but what the issue is was for me that okay, I've done certain things, and now the rest of my life. I mean, for example, I was so nauseous and dizzy for a long time. I could, I was finding it hard to read and concentrate. So I would like, I watched a lot of TV, you know, and I sat in one spot because I couldn't drive, you know.
Hmm.
But what I realized was, wait a second. This is where I turned to my Asian philosophers,
Hmm.
like Lao Tzu and a few others, that they would say, I've said it before in other podcasts, just being, just existing is enough.
Hmm.
They would argue, unlike the Western philosophers,
Hmm.
Western, that you have to do something productive with your life. Now, for
Hmm.
example, in America, you have to, if you're not productive, you know, so if you're not
Yeah.
making money, right, if
Yeah.
you're not productive, you're worthless in this
Yeah.
country,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? Right?
Hmm.
And
That's the conflict in my head of Asian, being Zen and being, just being, and then you have the I'm like forced into American capitalism and money and
sure,
all of
sure.
that.
So in you know this is a capitalist country. You need to produce, you need to
Hmm.
make stuff, earn money, so
Yeah.
you can buy more stuff, so other people who are producing stuff can
Yep.
get a
Yep.
profit.
Keep
I mean,
buying. Keep
yeah,
buying.
right. It's all about being productive, or even being productive in a non-commercial way, being productive doing something of value in
Hmm.
the country. You
Hmm.
could say, well, I'm helping to feed the homeless or whatever. That's all good. Okay, that's great. But there's still this notion of I just can't walk through my life
And just be.
and just be and just suck up the air and go to the beach and watch the waves break and in other
Hmm.
words lie down and read a book because it's not I'm I'm not doing anything. I'm not productive. Okay.
Hmm.
And of course, this is why, for example, the Asians are big on things like meditation. When you're meditating, you're not doing much for society. You're doing a lot for yourself, though. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
It's like, hey, I'm trying to get inner
Yeah, that's
peace.
why also the government didn't like those hippies.
For sure. Oh yeah. Well, yeah, because here's what they let's oh yeah, let's lie around and smoke dope and have sex. I
Yeah,
mean, come on.
yeah, they were
Well,
against the hippies and weed,
yeah,
right?
yeah, because those are all things that they've viewed as being not productive.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
It's also was a rejection of
To
society,
yeah,
which
to
they did. But
authority.
yeah. Now, for example, the right wingers want to do this. They say, "We're going to take this country back. We're going to bring it back to where it was." Okay. So here's where they want to bring it back to. The 1950s, basically.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
that was post World War II. Now remember, I'm a war baby. I was born. I'm not a baby boomer. I was born between the end of the war in Europe, VE Day, and before the end of the war in Japan, which was VJ Day. So
Hmm.
I'm technically a war baby. All right. So, in fact, my father was when he was on leave, I guess, and all of a sudden, he and mom were knocking boots, and I was created. So, and he was shocked. He was shocked when I was
Hmm.
born. He just wasn't expecting it.
Hmm.
Okay, so now I spent a lot of time after World War II watching TV, black and white, 13-inch Dumont TV screen, and they
Hmm.
had a lot of post-World War II stuff on it. So I was learning a lot about World War II and what's things that happened afterwards. And so figure what, I was born in 45, so certainly at the 5 year age. I mean, my father, I would sit with him and he would explain stuff to me. And in fact, our favorite show to watch was a show called Victory at Sea. Now, a lot
Hmm.
of people, older people will know what that was. They had great stirring music. It was black and white, and they had open up, it had all these big waves out in the ocean, world, heaving and breaking, and that's because he was in the Navy, so he was big on that stuff. So I learned a lot about World War II through him, through his brothers, my uncles, because they also actually he was the only one who didn't see actual war. He because he was stationed in Oregon, I think, but they all saw war, and my one uncle was in England during the Blitz. The other one was in Germany, saw action in Germany. My other one was saw action in Italy. Okay, so I was very conversant with it. It was part of my experience growing up,
Mhm.
and and they didn't really want to talk about it because it was ugly. Okay, but there's no question that when the United States got more powerful, and in the 50s, 50 the right wing was like the 50s. You know why? Because first of all, black people were suppressed. They were under control. Okay,
Mhm.
that's number one. They like to tell the lie. This is another great lie that they tell kids in school. Okay, and oh, America, it was created as a Christian country. Bollocks to that. This was
Mhm.
not constitutionally, this is not a Christian country. It never was supposed to be a Christian country. And guess what? A lot of the founding fathers were not Christians. I'll tell you what they were. They were deists, Deists, deists.
Mhm.
Here's what they believed, okay? They believed that there's only three tenets in deism. They said, okay, God exists, all right? Then they'll say, God created the world and then left it alone. I guess they thought, he flew down to the Bahamas and was drinking, whatever, daiquiris or something.
Mhm.
And then the third one, and this is where the society develops.
Mhm.
They say, well, they believe that good will be rewarded and evil punished. And
Mhm.
then here's the rest of that in this world and the next. Okay. So now you get your system of jurisprudence in this country from that notion
Mhm.
that good people have to be rewarded. Okay, fine. And evil people should be punished. And so they have all these laws and all these
Mhm. Mhm.
punishments and so forth and so on. Okay,
Mhm.
that was real basic. That was actually relatively secular. They
Mhm.
gave a nod. Oh yeah, yeah, God exists.
Yeah.
Okay,
But didn't
to
they
allow
come
them.
over here for religious freedom?
Well, that's another story. You see,
Right?
that's why all these BS Christian, these well, it's usually the white Christian nationalists are speaking such garbage,
Yeah.
such horse poop.
Yeah.
Okay. By the
Mhm.
way, it's an insult to horses poop to call them. The founding fathers were well aware that
Mhm.
when people left England and Europe and stuff, part of the reason was they were trying to escape these theocratic countries
Mhm.
because once you start having theocracy, which of course in this country you've got a right wing leaning Supreme Court, all of whom are these theocratic nut jobs. Okay, they really want to see religion. They're trying to erase separation of church and state so that religious notions will be primary. Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a recipe for disaster. Pretty soon you'll be having witches burnt at the stake and all kinds of nonsense like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Which they were
So
trying to do, right?
yeah, yeah. So and the founding fathers they were the best educated people of their country. Yes, they had slaves. Yes, they were rich, and they were rich. They were white, but you know what? They do knew that certain things for a new government in a new country would not be a good idea. And theocracy, okay, the organizing of government through and by religion was a bad idea, a
Mhm.
dangerous idea. Okay,
Mhm.
so when you have all these clowns on the right saying, "Oh, we have to bring it back," great Christianity, and that's great. Yeah, that's all hypocritical morality. It's baloney. And by the way, it hasn't made people any better.
Mhm.
Okay. I
Mhm.
mean, Christianity has done just as much damage as any other kind of philosophy or religion. How many people have died because of Christianity, whether it be in the Crusades? Sometimes I just think when I listen to some of these asshole Christian white nationalists, I keep saying to myself, Christ, bring back the lions. There aren't enough lions because they used to have the lions eat these Christians in the Colosseum. You know what? Bring back the lions. You can't bring them back fast enough.
Mhm.
Okay. In
Mhm.
fact, I've got room on my acreage. I'll breed a few lions, to bring up the population of lions. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the fact of the matter is that again, this is when you keep people ignorant, this is what happens. Now,
Yeah.
um, uh, so the founding fathers, like, they knew all this stuff. Okay.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
were they perfect? No. Yeah, they had slaves. Yeah, and by the way, most of them knew slavery was wrong, but they're saying again, capitalist country, we need them to continue making our profit. Okay.
Mhm.
So when I said to you, by the way, when I said to you about the first people to come into America who were not the Indians were blacks and Spanish, the Spaniards had black slaves that they were Africans. Okay.
Mhm.
So I mean, slavery was from the get-go. Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and also people don't remember and realize s- traditionally, historically, slavery wasn't about color. Okay, so the ancient Romans and other cultures, they had slaves who became slaves. Anybody that they conquered. So then they
Mhm.
conquered them, they exploited them, they turned them into slaves. Okay,
Mhm.
my last name Schiavo
Mhm.
means in Italian means slave or peasant. Okay,
Really?
yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
wow.
I thought you knew that. Yeah,
I
and
probably knew, I forgot because I have bad
maybe,
memory.
yeah. So, but here's what that really, it comes from the word Slav because most of the Romans were basically, conquering all the Slavic areas. Okay,
Mhm.
and most of their slaves were Slavic peoples who were white.
Mhm.
Okay, and let's give the Romans their due. Unlike this country, okay, if
Mhm.
you became a Roman citizen, which was like your ticket to ride, you had a lot of freedom and a lot of privileges as a Roman citizen.
Mhm.
You could be any color as a Roman citizen, and a lot of slaves got freed and they became Roman citizens. Okay, we don't this country we have citizens of color, and we don't honor them the way the Romans honored their slaves or their
Mhm.
former slaves. Okay,
Mhm.
so this is where another thing where we fall down as a moralistic country. This is not a moralistic. Well, wait, moralistic is it's not a moral country. It likes to claim it's a moral country,
Mhm.
but it's so full of crap, it's disgusting. Okay, the
Yeah.
way we treat other cultures, the way we treat our own citizens is an outrage. You're just seeing it now too. These asshole right-wing governors like Abbott and DeSantis, they're flying immigrants up to these different northern states. They're saying, well, they're trying to send a message. Well, you're not taking care of immigration. Yeah, there's a lot of things wrong with immigration, but if you had any respect for these people, and by the way, these people, like Venezuelans, are not illegal. They have a different status. They are seeking asylum. They are not illegal. And
Mhm.
the trouble this is that the protocols and the procedures to become an asylum seeker and then get citizenship takes like I think they said it was something like 1,300 days. It takes like oh, it's like 3 years or more.
Wow.
So it's wrong on both sides of the fence politically, but you shouldn't be treating these states like Texas and Florida and stuff. Oh yeah, we're Christians and we treat people with dignity. No, you don't. You're lying through your teeth. They're hypocrites. Let me give you a perfect example. I'm gonna have to put my glasses on to show you what Texas has done in 2021
Mhm.
because they want people to be ignorant and they want the 50s to return. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
it says here. Um, Right. The Republican controlled Texas state legislature enacted a law in 2021 specifying what should and should not be taught to students about their nation's and state's past. Excluded were the 15th Amendment, which prohibits the federal government and states from denying or abridging the right to vote on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. We violate that amendment all the time. That also excluded the 1965 Voting Rights Act, the history of Native Americans, and documents on the separation of church and state, which we were just talking about, and the women's, Chicano, and labor movements. Existing standards calling for teaching about the ways in which white supremacy, slavery, eugenics, and the Ku Klux Klan are morally wrong were removed. The law is unmistakably a formula for again making Texas, where non-Hispanic whites are already a minority, what it was before 1964, a white man's state. How about that? Okay? And
Mhm.
this is what the right wingers are doing across the country.
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
soon as people are just asleep at the switch. They say, like, they talk about when you throw a frog in cold water and then turn up the heat and to a boil. The frog's not picking up on what's happening to him. You know what I mean?
It's too slow.
It's slow. It's slow but sure, and ultimately the frog gets murdered.
Yes.
The frog
Yes.
gets killed. And we're doing the same thing in this country.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're frogs that the right wingers are putting in cold, coolish water, and they're turning up the heat, and they're turning up the
Mhm.
heat
Mhm.
continually, and they have been, especially with the advent of Trump, who's been their useful idiot in their their attempt to just make everybody more ignorant and more powerless, especially if they're of color,
Yeah.
or if they are of a political persuasion like me, who's very
Mhm.
liberal. Okay,
Mhm.
so I think really a book like this one, the lies that my teacher told me, talks about all these things that they've been trying to sweep under the
Under the
rug, and
rug.
they've done it for
Yeah.
years.
Yep.
Okay. And I would say for anybody who wants to learn more about why this country is such a hypocritical
Yeah.
uh, and I want to say morally dishonest culture, this is what you have to read. You know,
Yeah, I totally agree. And there was also like some other documentaries I had watched on Netflix too that was very eye-opening too, that I didn't learn those things in, when I went to school either, where I was like, wow, that's interesting. So I'm always looking to find information, facts,
sure, sure,
everything, a wide range of facts.
sure. Well, again, my job was to speak the truth as I perceived it. Now, having said it that way, students were free to tell me, well, Captain Willie, I think you're wrong. Okay,
Yeah,
tell me
that's
why I'm
fine.
wrong.
Go ahead.
Tell me
Yeah.
why I'm wrong.
hmm
Let's discuss this. Let's go
Yeah.
back and forth. And I used to have religion. I mean, I used to have students who were very much devout Christians,
Yeah.
and I would give them a hard time, and I would explain to them, yeah, I went to a Catholic university. I was born and raised and baptized Catholic one,
hmm
and I used to say, oh, it's all hogwash. Okay,
hmm
but let me explain to you how I came to that conclusion.
Yeah.
And then I'd say, okay, and now how did you come to your conclusions?
hmm hmm
And then I have to, and they said, well, I did this, I did that, and I read this
hmm
Bible, and of course, and I have great faith. And I said, well, you realize, of course, the definition of faith is believing in stuff that you can't prove.
hmm
Okay,
Yeah.
so
You
you're
can't
believing in all
prove, you
this,
can't see.
you can't say you can't prove it. Yeah, so
Mhm.
what? So I believe it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like for
Believe it
example,
and follow the rules.
well, here's a perfect example. Right now, I'm a healthy 77-year-old person.
Yes.
I believe I'm never going to die. I have faith that I'm going to live forever. How about that?
hmm
Okay.
hmm
Okay. So I have faith that I'm going to live forever.
Yeah.
All right. Is that going to happen?
No.
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 So that's just, but I'm saying,
But
uh,
you will live forever virtually.
that's right. That's we got. Thanks to you. Sweetie. Thanks to you. Um,
Virtually you will.
yeah.
Physically you won't.
But here's the other thing about human nature.
hmm
We need to believe stuff
Yeah.
so that we don't get depressed and suicidal.
Yeah.
We need to believe that we have a certain level of significance, a certain level of importance. We need to believe that we are cared for and loved,
hmm
all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
I'm like everybody else. I want to be as loved and appreciated and respected as
Yeah.
anybody else.
Everybody wants some sort of purpose and something to follow so you don't feel lost in the world and
Yeah.
chaos and
But
craziness.
yeah, but I mean, one of the things, the reason why I used to say to people, say to my students, is that they said, well, what if, you're not religious? I said, well, yeah, but I'm not. But if I were religious, I'd be a Taoist, Buddhist existentialist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now Taoism, Chinese, Buddhism, actually out of India and China, and of course existentialism. Those three philosophies, they're not
hmm
religious. Those three philosophies all posit the same thing.
hmm
Actually, they don't posit that there's a supreme being. None of them have a belief in God.
hmm
He'd be upset if that he's been deified in too many cultures. He was a teacher.
hmm
That was it. He was a teacher. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, Taoism means a way, the way. There's a path to enlightenment, a path to happiness, and whatever in the world. Okay. And existentialism is kind of says it's non-religious, it's secular, and says what we said before. You create a purpose, you try to be authentic to that purpose, and
hmm
if you do that, you're going to be as happy as one can be, given the fact that you're living in an imperfect world and you
hmm
are an imperfect entity as a human being. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's all there. And again, this is all about becoming less ignorant,
Wiser.
more wiser, more knowledgeable,
hmm
and not letting governments and sleazy politicians, uh, you know, like Abbott and DeSantis in their respective states, or uh, the Trump crowd, uh, hornswoggling you and making you believe absolute horseshit.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to. So,
Yeah.
as an educator, that's what most decent educators' jobs are all about. So
Yeah.
now I would say to my past, present, and future history, American history teaching colleagues, have your students read a book like this. The other book that they can read too, this is another thing,
Mm-hmm.
book called Forbidden Knowledge. Now,
Mm.
the
Ooh, show us
copyright,
that book.
oh yeah, look, Forbidden Knowledge, and the subtitle is From Prometheus to Pornography. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is kind of interesting because this is the book. Can you see
That's the
this?
book. Put it higher. Higher.
That higher,
Yeah.
higher,
Mhm,
better,
mhm.
higher.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, this book was copyright written, I think the year at let's see, this was 1996. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so this one talks about knowledge being forbidden, which is what right wingers are trying to do. Like I just said about Texas. Texas is making certain kinds of uh, stuff forbidden. Okay,
Yeah.
they don't want it being taught in the classrooms.
Yeah.
So now the issue with this book is okay. There's lots of stuff, and there's always been some group who said certain knowledge is forbidden. It's
Mm-hmm.
taboo. It's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because there is a philosophical notion that says, you know what? Maybe it's better if we human beings don't know about certain things.
Yeah.
Maybe it's better if we don't know and we don't understand.
I wonder
Okay.
if these certain books are forbidden in prison.
You know, that's a very good comment. Interesting question. There are certain books, yes, they used to. I'm. I guess it depends on the prison that
Yeah.
are not that convicts are not allowed to read.
Oh, okay. Because I wonder if they're allowed to read some of these very, these books in prison. Because if they were, they would be more knowledgeable too.
Yeah, but you want a lot of look at a lot of people who were in prison, convicts like Malcolm X and a lot of others. They got really better educated in prison.
Yeah, a lot of them go to jail and then they read
Yeah,
a lot of
I'll
books
tell you
and
another
find a
one.
lot of knowledge.
One of my personal favorites. He wrote a book called Soul on Ice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, what's his name? I've lost it. It'll come to me. He was in prison, and he was he was, and he admits he wrote a Soul on Ice was really a four big essays based upon his experience from prison until he came out.
Mm-hmm.
Eldridge Cleaver, that was his name, Eldridge
Mm-hmm.
Cleaver,
Mm-hmm.
and he was in the Black Panthers and the whole nine yards.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically got educated,
Yeah.
got way smarter, had some very interesting theories
Yeah.
politically. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and I did that book, by the way, in a junior English class, along with a lot of other books in Black literature.
That's great.
Yeah, well, I got away with that because
Yeah.
that book was really radical,
Mm-hmm.
really radical. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so
Wait, what's the
uh,
name of that book?
I'm sorry,
What was the name of that book?
Soul on Ice.
Soul on
I don't
Ice.
have it with me. I lent it to
Mm-hmm.
a colleague of mine, and in fact, he's due to give it back to me soon. Anyway, but I'll tell you how radical it was.
Mm-hmm.
One of his uh, themes was the rape of white women as a political tool. Okay, now that's radical to have had junior high school students read.
Mm-hmm.
Why I got away with it?
Mm-hmm.
I had so many black students with black parents who were militant. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I mean we don't talk about. I haven't used the word black militant in a long time,
Mm-hmm.
but when right now I would probably choose to use black activist right now.
Yeah, a different word. Yeah.
Yeah, but I had a lot of militant students. I mean,
Yeah.
they were ferocious in a lot of ways. And when the first semester I had African American lit, there were only two. There were two white kids, one male, one female, and the rest of the group, I think, had 25 students. The other 23 were black.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and the preponderance of them were militant.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, one of the reasons why I did so well with those kinds of students was I was in some ways more politically radical than they were, number one,
Yeah.
only so because I was white. They didn't expect a white teacher, because
Mm-hmm.
what they would have expected is that as a white instructor,
Yeah.
I would have in fact tried to persuade them to be more white and to believe in the white way of
Horseshit.
yeah, well, the white way of doing stuff in America. I would
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I would be trying to persuade them to be less militant and more
Mm-hmm.
appreciative of the experience and the opportunities that they had.
Yeah.
And in the United States. And this is another bogus notion of opportunity because in this country, the land of
Mm-hmm.
freedom. Well,
Mm-hmm.
guess what?
Mm-hmm.
It's the, your opportunities are restricted when in fact you've got structural racism,
Yes, yes, that's well,
and
that
that's
was one of the
another reason.
conversations I had with Sunrise.
Yeah, and that's another reason why
Hmm.
these politicians don't want critical racism being taught to younger people. Yeah, it was supposed to be up in law school and graduate school. That's fine, but structural racism. I mean, I don't know how you could not understand it if you
It's
live in this
always
country.
been around, always,
Absolutely. The
always.
long and
Yeah.
short of it is, we have to probably end this. Even we have had a lot of interruptions today, but I know that my madam producer will be editing this appropriately. Okay,
Me.
thank you. Um, uh, I'm going to talk a lot about. I'm going to talk about Joseph Campbell next week,
Okay.
and because there's a couple that everybody should read.
Yeah, yeah.
And actually too, they're also talk about learning stuff and not being ignorant. It's
Hmm.
also you'll learn an awful lot from reading him. You'll read again why we have all this mythology
Hmm.
in America about American history and American historical figures, not to mention other world myths that keep people kind of ignorant.
Yeah, I love
So
it. I love it. It's been a pleasure, and I'm so happy that you can join me for these weekly conversations to get the Captain Willie show and get all your wit and wisdom for
oh,
me and
please,
everybody who watches these.
and the only thing is that what you don't want to see with the Captain Willie show is me breaking into song and dance. Okay.
No, I do want you. I want you to bring your banjo or your guitar, your electric guitar, and start playing.
Yeah, it's funny. I was doing some big thanks to you. I've been doing some stuff, watching some stuff on YouTube, and I found out I saw a couple of shorts about because I also have a ukulele too,
Hmm.
and about I saw some things about doing blues riffs on my ukulele.
Hmm.
I may have to find some time.
Oh, you should do it. Well, everything is on YouTube. Everything that you need to
You
learn
know,
is on tutorial.
I'm going to tell you this. It's shocking to me. If you need an answer, like for
Yes.
example, there is like a fixing stuff.
Yep.
Okay, you want to fix your toilet like the other
Yep.
day?
Yeah.
Go to
Did you see it?
YouTube, man.
Did you see it on
Yeah,
YouTube?
one of the most fascinating little factoids I learned on YouTube because I had to fix a toilet tank handle was that how they always go when you put nuts onto screws and stuff. It's always lefty loosey, righty tighty.
Hmm.
Well, guess it's on a toilet tank thingies. It's reversed. You
Yeah,
have to
I
put
was confused. Like, did you see on YouTube that I had to fix my toilet handle?
I didn't see it on YouTube, but I know we talked about it. But you
Yeah.
had to take that nut, that plastic nut, and
Yeah.
go
And
counterclockwise.
it was hard
Otherwise,
to
it
get
wouldn't
off. I
work.
was like,
Yeah,
what is going on?
yeah, and that's because when you have so many, you can have thousands and thousands of flushes on it. By doing it that way, the nut will stay close and everything will work.
Be tighter.
Okay,
Mhm.
I took
You digress.
I digress. I took a
But
totally.
you digressing is always a pleasure because we
Hey,
always get another story out of it.
feel free to cut that out. All righty,
Well,
sweetie.
thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Very good. Stay well.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye now.